Good afternoon on what is a mild grey and overcast day. It is Friday the 3rd of February and I'm in the reading up with a nice hot cup of tea and a parcel to unbox. So let's nope, at this end. Let's get this open. It's quite securely taped, so there we go. Almost there. What I've got in here is that this is something I've actually been after for quite a while. I have an interest in role-playing games, obscure and not, and this is quite obscure. Not necessarily in the perfect condition, but it is Recon, Manual for Role-Playing in Modern Warfare, published by RPG Inc. And this is the United Kingdom edition, which I never knew existed. Now, this is a role-playing game of snooping and pooping. That doesn't sound but good, does it? But that's what it says on the back. And we are talking military terminology there, not the other terminology you might be thinking. 4 to 12 men operating deep in the bush of Vietnam, outnumbered, with only wit, skill, and raw courage between them, and violent death looking for the between them a violent death looking for the Viet Cong in his jungle sanctuary, then dumping on him, sleeping and pooping. The recon missions of the LARP, SOG, SEAL, Delta, PRU, and Phoenix. Recon recreates 34 operations using the percentile role-playing system that features a unique mapless terrain generation for faster play and simpler preparation. Recon can be played with 20mm Vietnam figures already available. Special artillery, airstrike, and helicopter gunship rules let you call in anything from miniguns to napalm. Begin your mission by inserting via chopper, riverboat patrol, halo, parachute drop, or underwater you can scuba. Continue your character's career after now as a soldier of fortune with 19 missions also in this book. So this was published in 1982 by Platoon 20, a division of model figures and hobbies in Groomsport, Northern Ireland. But it was published by RPG Inc. A little earlier, basically the same year. And this is an actual role-playing game that I did play back in the mid-80s. We would sort of like pop along to the chemistry lab, where there was sort of a gaming club, and we would role play a bit, but mostly board games. So we were playing Kingmaker and Diplomacy and Civilization, which the chemistry teacher would essentially get hold of the board game, laminate it to death, and blue tack everything down so that it would remain in place when it was taken away at the end of the dinner break. So that was at my school in Wimborne in Dorset back in the mid-80s. But my friend Sean brought this in, little black booklet, not this, but the original American black booklet, and ran this for us, with us none the wiser about what it really was about, what it, its tone and so on. It was just a role-playing game, of course. We didn't know. We were, teenagers in sixth form. So, and as I say, I didn't, a little black book, which I remember, I didn't know it was published in the UK, but clearly it was. I don't remember it being particularly great system as such, skills with percentiles. You just rolled straight percentiles for your skills, and each you could actually start off with an utterly awful character. It turned out that my character was really great with a blooper, with essentially with a grenade launcher. So, I was able to place grenades on spot with alacrity. So here we've got an explanation of the mechanics. Now, this game does not have a very good reputation as such, primarily because of some of the tone and the writing style in some of the supplements. And it's something which I've also found in other military role-playing games of the period, most notably Merc from Fantasy Games Unlimited. So this is an interesting role-playing curio. It sort of captures the style and interest of what what role-playing was like, what people were concerned with, and this would have been part of the sort of like the number of sort of like military-themed role-playing games that came out during the period, which would have included, of course, the aforementioned Merc. Also, I'm trying to think. There's a post-apocalyptic game that I can't remember the name of, that came out in 1979, something like that, and will probably kind of come to sort of like reach its end point with Twilight 2000, more recently redone by Free League Publishing. So here we've got a list of skills and the makeup of Recon teams. So you've got some historical details, and then we get on to some kind of battle formations and so on, and the details of Victor Charlie or the Viet Cong and so on. And you really are kind of it's interesting that you are, with this game, you are looking back upon the Vietnam War, which would have only been fought in the last decade when this came out in 1952. So 1972 would have been the war ending in 74. With perceptions of the period immediately after it, with this is going to be interesting to look at this 40 years on from when this was published, and then sort of like 50 years on from the war itself. The attitudes have changed. We have more information, we are more aware. So here we've got the rules in for insertion. Now, to some extent, this role-playing games would be the basis also for Recon, published by Palladium Books. You can still get a copy of that, and that's far more historically based. And this also takes you outside of the idea of role-playing in the Vietnam War, and I've done sort of like Vietnam War role-play as well. Here we've got the idea of concepts of freelancing, and also recruiting and becoming a mercenary, and that again is something of the period. In 1982, you would have had mercenaries operating throughout the 60s and 70s into the early 80s. They kind of they would have been kind of sort of like they were sort of like, as soldiers of fortune, they were sort of figures of almost romantic military, sort of like the freebooter, the soldier of fortune, etc. Now you have, it's more a case of that kind of thing has been more commercialized with private security and military firms. So you could go off and do that, and that's one of the things that sort of essentially that was the subject of Merc. So here was a discussion. Here we get into the small arms and and using it, weaponry, heavy weapons, and so on. And like Merc, this has the sort of quality where you could take this and use it as a miniatures role-playing game, miniatures role-playing game or miniatures war game as well. Integrating the two kind of. And then, we've got basically section on mines and booby traps. And then demolitions, so smoke, artillery, so on. Bringing in heavy support, hand-to-hand combat. Non-weapon skills all the way at the back. And then we've got the recon tables. Further tables essentially for making contact with the enemy. Again, basic reprinting the tables early in the book. And a short appendices, basically of times and so on. So things like the military alphabet, military time, Vietnamese names, and it's kind of like, and it's important. Like sort of like in some ways, there is a sense of, in some cases, role-playing books being quite well researched. Not necessarily I'm saying this one, but it is a case of role-playing games sort of like being researched on particular subjects, and basically giving that information that the author has researched in a more digestible form. And this is to some extent doing it here. I know, for example, that, for example, if I'm looking at something like GURP Special Ops, I mean, having read that, and he's sort of like got in a conversation with someone who was in the army, and he looked at me and went, "How the hell do you know that?" And I said, "Well, I've read it in this book," and it just took an interest, and that's an interesting sort of like instance where I am just have a fascination with it. So we have things like, we've got a map of a PBR, basically a patrol boat river or riverine, and the pleiades for the scales at the end there. But yeah, this actually looks a lot sturdier than the American original edition, which I remember from, well, what would be 40 years ago now. Because it has a card cover and so on. It's a bit damaged on the back, I said, with the ink, but otherwise I think it's in reasonable condition. I am going to do a review of this at some point. It'd be interesting to sort of like look at this and bring back memories and see what, and also go and investigate what people said about the game at the time when it was published, because that's what I always do with a retrospective review. Anyway, this unboxing, yeah. So if you've enjoyed this unboxing, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings, look where you'll see me out here with a box containing a book or game which I'll unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge, all of course accompanied by a nice cup of tea. Then please do click on the like button down below. Sorry, the subscribe button down below. So this video essentially is for my friend Sean on our gaming days back in the 80s. I say it was great to see you last year when you came over from Australia. Hope you get a chance to come over again. In the meantime, thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. I'll be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.